3 federal appeals court judges said they could determine the intent of the legislature? I don't know how they can move into clairvoyancy, but they've done so, and that stinks to high heaven. Next on Newsmax Prime, playing hardball. How I handled the high heat from the left last night. Also, playing word games. President Obama says that payment to Iran wasn't ransom, but Alan Dershowitz disagrees. The noted attorney joins us to make his case. And playing for keeps. Running for president is not a game, yet there is a need to focus on the fundamentals. Mike Flanagan with a little friendly advice for Donald Trump. Now, here's my friendly advice to you. Stay right here as Newsmax Prime starts right now. Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, rigging and ransom. Alan Dershowitz will be along in a few minutes to talk about the Obama administration's curious timing of a payment to Iran in exchange for some American prisoners. But first, a few reflections on another TV appearance by yours truly last night discussing the threat of a rigged election on MSNBC. The way I see it, that invitation to appear on Hardball last night gave me the chance to introduce some much-needed common sense into a discussion that the left has taken in the wrong direction. You see, after the disputed presidential election of 2000 and the pivotal role Florida played in that historic controversy, the Sunshine State truly took bipartisan action to prevent voter fraud. As a relatively new Florida voter, I'm reassured when my photo ID is checked and my signature is verified. But the exemplary action Florida took years ago has been delayed and derailed in other states. The claim from the left is this: requiring photo ID is discriminatory and suppresses the minority vote. So you can see where this is headed. The left renews its catcall that Republicans are racist, while Donald Trump responds that a failure to verify voter IDs could result in a rigged election. Adding to the cynicism, something that occurred last Friday and that you and I discussed on Monday. 3 Democrat judges on the federal appeals court striking down North Carolina's voter ID law. I confronted Chris Matthews with that troubling fact last night.
Just the question, why is Trump talking rigged elections at this point?
Because there are legitimate concerns. You can define rig, I guess, the way Mr. Clinton asked for the definition of what is. But I will tell you this, there are legitimate concerns that efforts are made, for example, in North Carolina last month, where 3 federal appeals court judges said they could determine the intent of the legislature. I don't know how they can move into clairvoyancy, but they've done so, and that stinks to high heaven. It's partisan, and it's wrong. Also wrong, the left's Orwellian and deceptive use of language. They say requiring photo ID is voter suppression, but when a photo ID is required to board a plane, we never hear that described as flyer suppression, nor do we hear charges of shopper suppression when a customer presents a photo ID while paying for something with a check. A failure to truly check a voter's identity when replicated in systematic fashion can lead to systematic failure in our elections. And that's the real threat of rigging. Now, from rigging to ransom, when cash is paid in exchange for prisoners, the definition seems clear, yet the White House still plays word games. Miranda Kahn has more.
Speaking of games, J.D., the White House still denies the $400 million payment to Iran was ransom, but controversy continues to swirl.
They wanted money for hostages. They got it. It set a precedent, and we're going to rue this day.
Look, for them to try to pretend this was anything other than a ransom is laughable. And
I think it is illegal.
The reaction from critics of the Obama administration's Iran deal have been quick to pounce on a report this week regarding that controversial $400 million payment to Iran.
We do not pay ransom for hostages.
We never have, and we're not doing that now.
But the parents of James Foley, who was murdered by the Islamic State, say the conversation about paying ransoms for U.S. hostages is one worth having.
I think it's important that we engage everyone in dialogue.
Diane and John Foley's son, James, was featured in an HBO documentary about his life, titled Jim, The James Foley Story. It recounts his work as a freelance reporter and his murder at the hands of ISIS. Video of his beheading was posted online. Meanwhile, one of the hostages who was involved in the January release with Iran says whether it was ransom or not, the plane they flew out on was held up for several hours. Why?
They said we are waiting for another plane, and until that plane doesn't come, we never let you go.
And Foley's father says what we should really focus on is the fact that Saeed Abedini and the other hostages did come home.
Human beings were freed. So, I mean, that's the focus, I think. There are 4 people home.
Now, many critics are concerned about the legality of the payment. Today, former Attorney General Michael Mukasey wrote in a Wall Street Journal basically saying that it's legal but not right.